Family sent the ugly pregnant daughter as a joke, but the virgin billionaire married her. She was never supposed to be more than the family's cruel punchline, the outcast, the girl everyone whispered about, carrying a child no one wanted. But in front of them all, one man stood up, the billionaire everyone thought was untouchable, and with 4 words he turned their laughter into stunned silence. "I'll marry her." What begins as a shocking act of defiance quickly spirals into something deeper, because he sees in her what no one else ever did: dignity, courage, and worth. But when the family strikes back, dragging secrets into the spotlight and threatening to take everything away, this fragile new love is pushed to the breaking point. Why would a billionaire risk it all for the woman everyone else rejected? And when loyalty, faith, and love are tested, will their marriage survive the storm, or be destroyed before it ever truly begins? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now, and if this story speaks to you, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sprawling Vaughan family estate, its manicured lawns and elegant gardens playing host to the annual summer reunion banquet. Crystal glasses clinked, and polite laughter floated through the warm air as dozens of well-dressed relatives mingled on the expansive stone patio. Anna shifted uncomfortably on the iron garden bench where she sat alone, tugging at the hem of her faded blue cotton dress. The fabric stretched awkwardly across her growing belly, a visible reminder of her shame. She'd found this quiet spot at the edge of the rose garden, hoping to escape notice, but she couldn't avoid hearing the whispered comments that followed her like persistent wasps. Can you believe she actually showed up? In that dress, no less. Someone should have told her this was a formal event. Her cousins, Madison and Claire, strutted past in designer gowns that sparkled in the evening light. Madison wore a red sequined number that hugged her slim figure, while Claire's emerald silk dress rustled with each deliberate step. They made no attempt to lower their voices. "Look at her hiding out here like a scared little mouse," Madison sneered, twirling a crystal champagne flute between her manicured fingers. Claire's lips curved into a cruel smile. "We should help her come out of her shell, don't you think? Make this party a bit more entertaining." Anna's cheeks burned as she heard them plotting, but she kept her eyes fixed on the garden's stone path. The roses beside her were in full bloom, their sweet perfume a small comfort. She wished she could disappear into their soft petals. Inside the main hall, the crystal chandeliers blazed to life as the sun began to set. Through the French doors, Anna could see the rest of the family gathering for the evening's festivities. The Vaughans spared no expense. For their annual reunion, waiters in crisp black uniforms weaved through the crowd with silver trays of hors d'oeuvres, while a string quartet played softly in the corner. "Everyone, gather round," called Uncle Geoffrey, the evening's host, his booming voice carrying across the garden. "Time for some traditional family fun." Anna's stomach clenched. She knew she should join the others, but her feet felt rooted to the spot. Before she could decide what to do, her cousins appeared on either side of her. "Come on, Anna, dear," Madison cooed with false sweetness, grabbing one arm. Claire seized the other. "You can't miss the games." They half-dragged, half-guided her toward the crowd forming in the center of the hall. Anna's heart pounded as she found herself surrounded by perfectly coiffed relatives in expensive evening wear. She could feel their judgmental stares, hear their barely concealed snickers. "Ladies and gentlemen," Uncle Geoffrey announced, his silver hair gleaming under the chandeliers, "it's time for our annual matchmaking game." He winked at the crowd. "As you know, this cherished tradition has led to more than one Vaughan family marriage." Nervous titters rippled through the gathering. Anna's cousins exchanged meaningful glances over her head. When I call your name, Geoffrey continued, step forward to be paired with your match for the evening's remaining festivities. As names were called and couples formed, Madison and Claire maintained their vice-like grip on Anna's arms. She could feel their excitement building like static electricity before a storm. Then she saw him, Lorenzo Vaughan, standing apart from the crowd as always. Tall and distinguished in his perfectly tailored black suit, he watched the proceedings with detached interest. Everyone knew about Lorenzo, the family's most eligible bachelor. At 35, he had never been seen with a woman, leading to endless speculation about his personal life. Some said he was too focused on running his billion-dollar tech empire to date. Others whispered about secret relationships or hidden preferences. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Just as Uncle Geoffrey paused to consult his list, Madison and Claire shoved Anna forward with surprising force. She stumbled, her outdated shoes sliding on the polished marble floor, and found herself directly in front of Lorenzo. "Oh, look!" Madison called out in mock surprise. "We have our next pair." The room erupted in laughter. Anna could hear the cruel amusement in their voices, see the smirks and pointing fingers. Someone whispered loudly, "The ugly, pregnant daughter and our untouchable Lorenzo? Now that's entertainment." Tears burned behind Anna's eyes as she stared at the floor, wishing it would open up and swallow her whole. The laughter seemed to go on forever, echoing off the high ceilings and crystal chandeliers. Then, gradually, the noise began to die down. A strange hush fell over the room as Lorenzo Vaughan slowly rose from his chair. Anna couldn't bring herself to look up, but she could feel his presence as he moved to stand beside her. The silence grew deeper, heavier with anticipation. When Lorenzo spoke, his voice was quiet but carried clearly through the stillness. "I accept this match." He paused, and Anna felt his gentle gaze on her before he continued with calm authority. "In fact, I will do more than that. I will marry her." The silence shattered. Gasps of shock rippled through the crowd. Anna's head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief as she finally looked at Lorenzo. His face was serene, his dark eyes warm and steady as they met hers. There was no mockery in his expression, no hint of jest or cruelty. "Lorenzo, surely you can't be serious." Uncle Geoffrey sputtered, his face turning an alarming shade of red. "I am entirely serious," Lorenzo replied, his voice still calm but carrying an edge of steel. "And I would appreciate it if everyone would give us a moment of privacy." The crowd began to murmur and shift, but no one moved. Lorenzo's eyes hardened slightly. "Now, please." As if breaking from a spell, the relatives began to drift away, shooting bewildered glances over their shoulders. Madison and Claire stood frozen, their perfect faces twisted in confusion and fury. Lorenzo fixed them with a cool stare until they too turned and fled. Anna's mind whirled, unable to process what was happening. Her legs felt weak, and she swayed slightly. Without hesitation, Lorenzo's hand came to rest gently at her elbow, steadying her. I don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I know," he said softly. "We have much to discuss, but not here. Would you walk with me in the garden?" Anna nodded mutely, still struggling to comprehend the events of the last few minutes. As Lorenzo guided her toward the French doors, she could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes following them, could hear the buzz of shocked conversations breaking out behind them. Her cousin's cruel game had backfired spectacularly, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she had somehow stepped into a dream, or perhaps a different kind of nightmare. The warm evening air enveloped them as they stepped outside, the sweet scent of roses replacing the suffocating atmosphere of the hall. Lorenzo's hand remained steady at her elbow, his presence beside her, both terrifying and oddly comforting. As they walked in silence toward the very bench where she had been hiding earlier, Anna's mind raced with questions she couldn't yet voice, and her heart thundered with emotions she couldn't begin to name. The garden fell into an unnatural silence as Lorenzo extended his hand toward Anna. The perfectly manicured roses and elegant topiaries seemed to lean in, witnessing this unexpected moment. Anna stared at his offered hand, noticing how steady it was compared to her own trembling fingers. "Please," Lorenzo said softly, his deep voice carrying only to her ears. "Allow me." With hesitation born from years of ridicule, Anna placed her hand in his. His grip was warm and secure as he helped her to her feet. She couldn't quite meet his eyes, focusing instead on the perfect knot of his navy silk tie. The cousins who had orchestrated this cruel joke stood frozen, their perfect makeup unable to hide their shock. Madison's mouth hung open in a most unladylike way, while Claire's carefully plucked eyebrows had disappeared beneath her bangs. Their earlier laughter had died so abruptly it was as if someone had pressed a mute button on their cruelty. "Shall we?" Lorenzo gestured toward the grand double doors leading to the banquet hall. His hand found its way to the small of her back, providing gentle guidance without being pushy. The touch, though light, felt like a shield against the stares that followed their every move. The banquet hall gleamed with crystal chandeliers and polished silver. White-gloved servers moved silently between tables, dressed in cream-colored linens. Anna felt painfully aware of her outdated dress, purchased from a thrift store when nothing else would fit over her growing belly. But Lorenzo's presence beside her seemed to make her invisible shortcomings matter less. He pulled out a chair for her at the main family table, positioning her carefully before taking his seat beside her. The chair scraped slightly against the marble floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the still stunned silence. "The salmon here is excellent," Lorenzo commented, as if this were any normal dinner conversation. "Though I've always thought they could be more generous with the dill sauce." His casual tone seemed to break the spell. Conversations gradually resumed around them, though Anna could feel curious glances darting their way. She picked up her fork with trembling fingers, only to set it down again when her uncle's voice cut through the gentle murmur of dinner conversation. "Well, isn't this cozy?" Uncle Geoffrey's words dripped with sarcasm. "Though I must say, Lorenzo, taking on another man's mistake seems rather beneath you." Before Anna could shrink into herself, Lorenzo's voice rang out, clear and firm. "There are no mistakes here, Geoffrey. Only blessings that some are too blind to see." He turned slightly toward Anna, his voice softening. "Would you like some water?" Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes as she nodded, watching him pour water into her glass with the same care he might handle fine crystal. Throughout the meal he kept up a gentle stream of conversation, asking about her interests, her thoughts on books he'd read, her opinions on everything from garden design to classical music. When she mentioned her love of painting, his eyes lit up. "The light in the conservatory is perfect for watercolors," he said. "Perhaps you might like to see it sometime." The evening seemed to pass in a blur. Anna found herself relaxing slightly, though she couldn't quite shake the feeling that this was all some elaborate dream. As the dessert plates were cleared and family members began to drift away, Lorenzo stood and offered his hand once again. "May I walk you back to your room?" The path to the guest house was lit by old-fashioned gas lamps, their soft light casting gentle shadows across the manicured lawn. The summer night air was heavy with the scent of jasmine, and crickets chirped a peaceful symphony around them. Anna walked beside Lorenzo, their steps falling into an easy rhythm. "I imagine you have questions," he said after a while, his voice gentle in the darkness. Anna wrapped her arms around herself, partly from the evening chill and partly from uncertainty. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she whispered. "Is it pity? Or some kind of joke I don't understand yet?" Lorenzo stopped walking, turning to face her. In the lamplight, his expression was serious but kind. "They can mock me, but I will not let them mock you. My word stands." The simplicity of his statement, delivered without flourish or dramatic declaration, made it somehow more powerful. Anna searched his face for any sign of deception, but found only steady conviction. They reached the guesthouse door too quickly and not soon enough. Anna's hand trembled as she reached for the handle, her mind swirling with confusion. Part of her wanted to believe in this unexpected kindness, to trust in the steady strength Lorenzo seemed to offer. But years of family cruelty had taught her to be wary of apparent kindness. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "For everything." Lorenzo nodded, taking a step back to give her space. "Good night, Anna. Rest well." Inside her room, Anna leaned against the closed door, her heart pounding with conflicting emotions. The room was exactly as she'd left it. Her small suitcase in the corner, a worn paperback on the nightstand, the bedspread still rumpled from her afternoon rest. Everything was the same, and yet everything had changed. She placed a hand on her swollen belly, feeling the baby shift beneath her touch. "What do you think, little one?" she whispered. "Should we trust him?" The baby kicked in response, but offered no answers to the questions swirling in her mind. Moving to the window, Anna watched Lorenzo's tall figure disappear down the path toward the main house. His words echoed in her mind. "My word stands." But as she changed into her nightgown and prepared for bed, she couldn't decide whether to let hope bloom in her heart or to brace herself for more pain. The night held no answers, only the soft sounds of crickets and the weight of possibilities she wasn't sure she dared to believe in. The early morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of Anna's guesthouse room, casting delicate shadows across her bed. She blinked awake, her hand instinctively moving to rest on her rounded belly. The events of the previous evening crashed over her like a wave. Lorenzo's unexpected declaration, his gentle defense. At dinner, the moonlit walk back to her room. Her heart felt heavy with uncertainty. Such kindness seemed too good to be true, especially after months of enduring her family's cruel whispers and sideways glances. Anna moved slowly through her morning routine, selecting a loose-fitting dress in soft blue cotton, one of the few that still fit comfortably over her growing bump. The walk to the main house seemed longer than usual, each step weighted with dread. What if Lorenzo had come to his senses overnight? What if last night had been nothing more than an elaborate setup for an even crueler joke? The grand dining room buzzed with morning activity when she entered. Crystal glasses clinked against fine china, and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Anna's steps faltered as she scanned the room, her breath catching when she spotted Lorenzo. There he sat at the main table, looking completely at ease in a crisp white shirt, sipping his coffee with quiet dignity. When he saw her, he stood, a gesture that caused several heads to turn. "Good morning, Anna," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the room. "I saved you a seat." Cousin Margaret's perfectly plucked eyebrows shot up as Lorenzo pulled out the chair next to his own. My, she drawled, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Trying to make the best of a growing situation, are we?" Anna's cheeks burned as she lowered herself into the offered chair, her pregnancy making the movement less graceful than she would have liked. But before she could respond, Lorenzo's calm voice cut through the tension. "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you," he quoted, reaching for the coffee pot. Jeremiah 1 verse 5. "Every life is precious in God's eyes, Margaret. Would you like some coffee, Anna?" The quiet authority in his voice left no room for argument. Margaret's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, before she turned her attention back to her own breakfast, thoroughly chastised. Throughout the meal, Lorenzo maintained a protective presence beside her, passing plates of fresh fruit and warm pastries, ensuring her glass stayed filled with water. His actions weren't showy or dramatic, just steady, consistent care that gradually helped Anna's shoulders relax from their defensive hunch. As the breakfast dishes were being cleared, Lorenzo turned to her. "Would you join me for a walk through the vineyard? The morning light is particularly beautiful among the vines." The vineyard stretched out behind the main house, row upon row of carefully tended grapevines reaching toward the summer sky. The morning dew still clung to the leaves, creating tiny rainbows as sunlight caught each droplet. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the gravel path crunching softly beneath their feet. When they reached a small clearing between the rows, Lorenzo paused. "You seem troubled," he said gently. "Would you share what's on your mind?" The kindness in his voice broke, something inside her. Tears that Anna had been holding back for months suddenly spilled over. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would someone like you want someone like me? I'm pregnant with another man's child. I'm ruined, according to everyone else." Lorenzo waited patiently as she wiped her eyes with trembling fingers. Taking a deep breath, Anna continued, the words tumbling out in a rush. "His name was James. We dated for 6 months. When I told him about the baby, he—" Her voice cracked. "He laughed, said he never wanted anything serious with someone as plain as me anyway, that I should have known better than to think he actually cared." The memory of that day still had the power to make her chest ache. "My family was right all along. I'm not pretty enough, not sophisticated enough, and now I'm alone and pregnant and a disappointment to everyone." Lorenzo's response was immediate and firm. "No." The single word carried such conviction that Anna's tear-filled eyes snapped to his face. "You are not a disappointment. You are not ruined, and you are not alone." He gestured to her belly with a gentle reverence that made fresh tears spring to her eyes. "Your child is a gift, not a curse, and I mean what I said. I will marry you." "But why?" Anna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because I see strength where others see weakness. Because you carry yourself with grace despite their cruelty. Because your child deserves a father who will love them as his own." He paused, his eyes holding hers steadily. "And because you deserve a husband who sees your true worth." The morning sun continued its climb into the sky as they stood there among the vines, the weight of his words settling around them like a blanket of peace. Eventually they walked back to the house, talking quietly about simpler things, his work with various charities, her dreams of finishing her art degree, their shared love of old movies. That evening, Anna sat in the window seat of her guesthouse room, watching stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. Her hand rested on her belly, feeling the gentle movements of her baby. For the first time in months, the future didn't seem like a looming shadow of shame and loneliness. Lorenzo's words from the vineyard echoed in her mind. Could it be true? Could this dignified, compassionate man really see something in her that even she had stopped seeing in herself? The stars offered no answers, but as she watched them twinkle against the velvet sky, Anna felt something she hadn't experienced since that day James walked away. Hope. The sun had begun its descent when a gentle knock sounded at Anna's guesthouse door. She opened it to find Lorenzo standing there, his tall frame silhouetted against the purple-orange sky. "Would you join me for dinner in town?" he asked, his voice warm but hesitant. "I thought you might appreciate some time away from the estate." Anna glanced down at her simple dress, suddenly self-conscious. "I'm not really dressed for You look lovely, Lorenzo interrupted softly. And where we're going, they care more about who you are than what you wear. The drive into town was peaceful, with classical music playing softly from the car's speakers. Anna watched the familiar buildings pass by, noticing how different they looked from the leather seat of Lorenzo's luxury car. When they pulled up to May's diner, a modest establishment with cheerful yellow curtains in the windows, she couldn't hide her surprise. "You eat here?" she asked, unable to imagine the billionaire heir to the Vaughan fortune in such a humble setting. Lorenzo's eyes crinkled at the corners as he smiled. "Best apple pie in 3 counties, and May makes real coffee, not that fancy stuff they serve at the estate." As they entered, the bell above the door chiming softly, Anna braced herself for the usual whispers and stares she'd grown accustomed to since her pregnancy began to show. Instead, she witnessed something entirely different. The other diners looked up, but their gazes held respect rather than curiosity. Several people nodded at Lorenzo with genuine warmth. "Evening, Mr. Vaughan," called an elderly man from behind the counter. "Your usual booth is open." Lorenzo guided Anna to a corner booth with worn red vinyl seats and a view of the street outside. A motherly woman with silver hair approached their table, her name tag identifying her as May herself. "Lorenzo Vaughan, it's been too long," she scolded affectionately, before turning kind eyes to Anna. "And who's this lovely young lady?" "This is Anna," Lorenzo replied, his voice carrying a note of pride that made Anna's cheeks warm. "Anna, meet May. She's been feeding me proper home cooking since I was in college." May's eyes took in Anna's condition without judgment. "Well, honey, you're eating for 2, so don't you dare hold back. Everything's on the house tonight." "Oh no, I couldn't." Anna started to protest. "Now don't you argue with me." May interrupted with a wink. "This boy here has paid for enough meals for half the town when times were tough. It's my turn to give back a little." After May left to get their coffee, Anna looked at Lorenzo questioningly. He shrugged, seeming almost embarrassed. "The recession hit this town hard a few years back. It seemed right to help where I could." They ordered comfort food, meatloaf for Lorenzo, chicken pot pie for Anna. And as they waited, Anna noticed how different Lorenzo seemed here, away from the formal atmosphere of the estate. His shoulders were more relaxed, his smile came more easily. When May brought their coffee and promised pie later, Lorenzo's expression grew thoughtful. He wrapped his hands around his mug, steam rising between them. "I should tell you something," he said quietly. "About why I've never—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Why I've never pursued a relationship before." Anna set down her own cup, giving him her full attention. The diner's soft murmur of conversation and clinking silverware created a cocoon of privacy around their booth. "When I was 16, Lorenzo continued, I overheard 2 girls at school planning how to catch me. They weren't interested in me, just my family's money. One of them even had a detailed timeline for how long to wait before filing for divorce to get the maximum settlement." He smiled ruefully. "I know it sounds paranoid, but it wasn't the last time I encountered that kind of calculation. After a while, I made a decision. I wouldn't enter into a relationship until I found someone who saw me, not my bank account. And—" He hesitated, color rising in his cheeks. "I chose to wait. Completely. I wanted my first time to be with someone who truly loved me." Anna sat in stunned silence, processing his words. This powerful man, who could have had any woman he wanted, had chosen solitude rather than risk being used. "Some people call it old-fashioned," he added softly. "My family thinks I'm strange, but it wasn't about shame or religious strictness. It was about waiting for something real." May appeared then with their meals, and they ate in comfortable silence for a while. The food was exactly as promised, simple, hearty, and delicious. Anna found herself relaxing, actually enjoying a meal for the first time in months. Over slices of warm apple pie and fresh coffee, Lorenzo spoke again. "I know this is sudden, and I know you have every reason to be suspicious of my offer. But I want you to understand, I see you, Anna, not as a charity case or a social project. I see your strength, your grace under pressure, your quiet dignity in the face of cruelty." Anna's fork trembled slightly as she set it down. "But I'm carrying another man's child," she whispered. "You're carrying a blessing." Lorenzo corrected gently. "A precious life that I would be honored to help raise, if you'll let me." The drive back to the estate was quiet, both of them lost in thought. The stars had emerged fully now, painting the sky with silver light. When they reached the guest house, Lorenzo walked her to the door, maintaining a respectful distance. "Thank you for dinner," Anna said softly, her hand on the doorknob. Lorenzo bowed his head politely. "Thank you for listening. Sleep well, Anna." Later, lying in her bed, Anna stared at the ceiling, her mind replaying every moment of the evening. The kindness in May's eyes, the respect the townspeople showed Lorenzo, his vulnerable confession about his past, the way he looked at her like she was worth seeing. Her heart felt like a bird trapped in a cage, beating against the bars of doubt and fear, yet yearning to believe in the possibility of flight. Could she trust this? Trust him? The question followed her into the night, even as her eyes grew heavy with exhaustion. Morning sunlight streamed through the guest house windows, but Anna barely noticed its warmth. The estate grounds buzzed with activity, voices carrying, across the manicured lawns like angry wasps. She could hear snippets of conversation even through her closed window. Can you believe the nerve? That plain little thing. And with a baby on the way, Lorenzo must have lost his mind. Anna's hands trembled as she tried to button her blouse. Word had spread quickly about Lorenzo's declaration. She hadn't even had time to process it herself before the entire family seemed to know. A sharp knock at her door made her jump. Her Aunt Caroline stood there, face pinched with displeasure. "The family wishes to speak with you. Now." The main house's sitting room felt more like a courtroom. Relatives lined the walls, their faces a mix of disgust and morbid curiosity. Uncle Richard, the family patriarch, sat in his favorite leather chair like a judge ready to pass sentence. "This nonsense ends now," he declared, his voice cutting through the whispers. "You've brought enough shame to this family. We will not stand by while you trap Lorenzo in some desperate grab for security." Anna's cousin Melissa snickered from her perch on the window seat. "As if Lorenzo would actually go through with it. He's probably just feeling sorry for you. If you pursue this ridiculous engagement," Uncle Richard continued, "you'll be cut off completely. No more family support, no more trust fund, nothing." Tears welled in Anna's eyes, despite her efforts to hold them back. These people were her family. They had watched her grow up, attended her graduations, celebrated her birthdays. Now they looked at her like she was something dirty, something to be discarded. "I didn't ask Lorenzo to—" she began, but her voice cracked. "Of course you did." Aunt Caroline interrupted. "You've always been desperate for attention. Now you're carrying some stranger's baby and trying to trap the wealthiest man in the family. It's disgusting!" The tears spilled over now, running down Anna's cheeks in hot streams. She wrapped her arms protectively around her middle, where her baby grew, innocent of all this hatred. The room fell silent as footsteps echoed in the hallway. Lorenzo appeared in the doorway, his presence commanding immediate attention. But he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a silver-haired man in a clerical collar, Pastor James from the local church. "Good afternoon," Lorenzo said calmly, as if he hadn't walked into a room crackling with hostility. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Uncle Richard stood, his face reddening. Lorenzo, we were just discussing this unfortunate situation. Surely you understand that we can't allow. Lorenzo's voice remained gentle, but there was steel beneath it. I wasn't aware I needed anyone's permission to marry. Pastor James stepped forward, his kind eyes taking in the scene. Lorenzo asked me to come discuss wedding arrangements. He suggested next week would be ideal. The room erupted. Aunt Caroline let out a strangled gasp. Melissa jumped to her feet, face twisted with fury. Uncle Richard's voice rose above the chaos. This is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you make a mockery of this family? Someone shouted. She's nothing but a gold digger. Think of the scandal. She's already ruined. Through it all, Lorenzo stood unmoved, like a rock in a stormy sea. His eyes found Anna's tear-stained face, and he offered her a small, reassuring smile. Next Wednesday would be perfect, he said to Pastor James, completely ignoring the ongoing outbursts. The church garden should be lovely this time of year. One by one, the family members stormed out, some shoving past Lorenzo, others pausing to deliver final barbed comments. Soon only Anna, Lorenzo, and Pastor James remained in the sitting room. Pastor James approached Anna gently. My dear, are you certain this is what you want? Marriage is a sacred commitment. Anna wiped her eyes, trying to gather her composure. I don't know anything anymore. Then let's take a walk, Lorenzo suggested softly. Pastor James, would you mind giving us a moment? The pastor nodded, understanding in his eyes. Of course. I'll be in my office when you're ready to discuss the details. The vineyard was peaceful in the late afternoon light. Rows of carefully tended vines stretched toward the setting sun, their leaves rustling gently in the breeze. Anna and Lorenzo walked slowly between them, their footsteps crunching on the gravel path. I'm sorry about my family, Anna finally whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. Don't apologize for them, Lorenzo replied. Their behavior reflects on them, not you. They walked a few more steps in silence before Anna gathered the courage to ask the question that had been burning in her heart. Why? Her voice trembled. Why are you doing this for me? Lorenzo stopped walking and turned to face her. The setting sun caught his profile, gilding his features in warm light. Because God told me to protect what others throw away. Anna's breath caught in her throat at the simple sincerity in his voice. When I saw you that first night, he continued, when they tried to humiliate you with that cruel game, I heard his voice as clearly as I've ever heard anything. Here was someone precious being treated as worthless. Here was someone who needed protection being left exposed to wolves. A fresh tear rolled down Anna's cheek, but this one felt different. Not born of pain, but of something else she couldn't quite name. You don't have to answer now, Lorenzo said gently. Take time to pray about it, but know that my offer stands, not out of pity but out of conviction. Later, back in her room, Anna sat by the window watching the last rays of sunlight fade from the sky. The day's events played through her mind like scenes from a movie. The family's cruel words, Lorenzo's steady presence, Pastor James's kind eyes. She placed a hand on her growing belly, feeling the slight flutter of movement within. For so long, she had felt alone, carrying not just her baby but the weight of shame and rejection. Now, somehow, a door had opened, a possibility of something she had never dared to hope for. The spark of hope in her heart was fragile, like a candle flame in the wind. But it was there, refusing to be extinguished by doubt or fear. She held on to it as darkness settled over the estate, knowing that tomorrow would bring either the death of that hope or the beginning of something entirely new. The small country chapel stood nestled among ancient oak trees, its whitewashed walls gleaming in the morning sunlight. Inside, sunbeams filtered through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the worn wooden pews. Only the front rows were filled, not with Anna's wealthy relatives, but with the honest faces of townspeople who had come to witness this unexpected union. Mrs. Miller, the baker's wife who had always slipped Anna extra cookies when she was a child, dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Old Mr. Thompson, who ran the hardware store, sat with his weathered hands folded in his lap, a gentle smile crinkling his face. These were the people who had watched Anna grow up, who had greeted her with kindness even after her shame became visible. In the tiny back room of the chapel, Anna stood before a full-length mirror, hardly recognizing herself. The borrowed wedding dress, loaned by Pastor James's wife, had been carefully altered to accommodate her growing belly. The soft white fabric draped gracefully over her curves, making her feel beautiful for the first time in months. "You look absolutely radiant, dear," Mrs. James said, adjusting the simple veil. Her kind eyes met Anna's in the mirror. "Are you ready?" Anna's hands trembled as she smoothed the dress over her stomach. The baby chose that moment to kick, as if offering encouragement. "I think so," she whispered. The old church organ began to play, its notes filling the small space with warmth. Anna took a deep breath and stepped into the aisle. Her heart fluttered at the sight before her, Lorenzo standing at the altar, tall and dignified in his dark suit. His eyes found hers immediately, and the steadiness in his gaze gave her strength to walk forward. The morning light caught the silver threads in Pastor James's hair as he smiled at the couple before him. "Dearly beloved," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chapel, "we are gathered here today in the sight of God to join together this man and this woman in holy matrimony." Anna's eyes stung with tears as she listened to the familiar words. Not so long ago she had thought herself beyond the reach of such ceremonies, marked forever by her mistakes. Yet here she stood, her baby growing beneath her heart, with a man who had chosen to protect rather than condemn her. When it came time for the vows, Lorenzo's voice rang out strong and clear. "I, Lorenzo, take thee, Anna, to be my wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part." His eyes never wavered from hers as he spoke each word with careful intention. Anna's own voice trembled, but held firm as she repeated her vows. The simple gold band Lorenzo slipped onto her finger felt warm and somehow right. "By the power vested in me," Pastor James proclaimed, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Lorenzo's kiss was gentle and respectful, a mere brush of lips that somehow held more tenderness than Anna had ever known. The small congregation burst into applause, their genuine joy filling the chapel with warmth. After accepting hugs and well wishes from the townspeople, Lorenzo led Anna to his waiting car. The drive to his estate was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Anna watched the familiar countryside roll past, realizing how different everything looked through the lens of this new reality. Lorenzo's estate was a sprawling Victorian mansion, well-maintained but not ostentatious. As they pulled up the circular drive, Anna noticed fresh flowers had been planted in the gardens, their cheerful colors brightening the grounds. "Welcome home," Lorenzo said softly, helping her from the car. The words sent a shiver through her. Home had been such an uncertain concept lately. He led her through the house, pointing out various rooms until they reached the east wing. "I've had this area prepared for you," he explained, opening a door to reveal a suite of rooms decorated in soft blues and creams. "I want you to have your own space where you can feel comfortable." The sitting room opened into a bedroom with an adjoining nursery. Anna's breath caught at the sight of the empty crib waiting there, its white paint gleaming in the afternoon light. Someone had arranged stuffed animals along a shelf and hung delicate curtains at the windows. "This is too much," she whispered, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness of it all. "It's not enough," Lorenzo replied simply. "But it's a start. Would you like some time to settle in? Mrs. Brooks, the housekeeper, has prepared dinner for whenever you're ready." Anna nodded, grateful for his understanding. After he left, she sank into a comfortable armchair by the window, her hand automatically finding its way to her rounded belly. The baby moved beneath her touch, as if sensing her tumultuous emotions. "Thank you, God," she whispered into the quiet room. "I don't understand why you've blessed me this way, but thank you." Tears slipped down her cheeks, not tears of shame or fear this time, but of tentative joy and gratitude. In his study across the house, Lorenzo stood at the window, the marriage certificate lying on his desk behind him. The afternoon sun was fading, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. He thought of Anna's face during the ceremony, beautiful in its hope, yet still carrying shadows of past hurts. Turning back to his desk, he picked up the certificate, his thumb tracing their newly joined names. "Lord," he prayed quietly, "give me the strength to be what she needs. Give me the courage to stand against those who would harm her, and help me to be worthy of the trust she's placed in me." He knew the real battle was just beginning. Anna's family wouldn't stay quiet for long. Their wealth and social connections made them dangerous enemies. But as he looked at the certificate in his hands, Lorenzo felt his resolve strengthen. He had made a vow today, not just to Anna, but to God. And with God's help, he would keep it. The early morning sunlight filtered through the curtains as Anna woke in her new bedroom. 2 weeks had passed since the wedding, and she was still adjusting to the quiet grandeur of Lorenzo's estate. The house felt different now, less like a museum, and more like somewhere she could belong. She made her way downstairs, following the smell of something burning. In the kitchen, she found Lorenzo frowning at the toaster, a plate of blackened bread beside him. His usually pristine dress shirt had spots of butter on it, and his hair wasn't perfectly combed as usual. "I thought I'd make you breakfast," he said sheepishly, holding up a piece of charred toast. "It's harder than it looks." A giggle bubbled up in Anna's throat, the first genuine laugh she'd experienced in months. The sound surprised them both. Lorenzo's face softened into a smile, and he joined in her laughter. "Maybe I should stick to coffee," he admitted, pushing the burnt toast aside. "Let me help," Anna offered, moving to stand beside him. Together, they managed to produce a decent breakfast of fresh toast, scrambled eggs, and fruit. As they ate, Anna noticed how Lorenzo always made sure her plate was full, his eyes careful and attentive. Later that morning, Lorenzo drove Anna to her prenatal appointment. The waiting room was filled with other expectant mothers, many accompanied by excited partners. Anna felt Lorenzo's steady presence beside her as they waited, his hand occasionally brushing her arm in quiet support. "Mrs. Vaughan," the nurse called, and Anna still felt a flutter at her new name. Dr. Martinez welcomed them warmly. "Your blood pressure is much better this visit," she noted, reviewing Anna's chart. "The baby's heartbeat is strong and regular." Lorenzo leaned forward, his usually composed face showing genuine interest. "Is there anything else we should be doing to ensure their health?" The doctor smiled at his concern. "You're doing everything right. Just keep up with the prenatal vitamins and regular exercise. Would you like to hear the heartbeat?" When the quick, steady rhythm filled the room, Anna saw Lorenzo's eyes widen in wonder. His hand found hers, squeezing gently. Back at the estate, Anna spent the afternoon organizing Lorenzo's study. The room was immaculate, but impersonal, like a picture in a magazine. She added small touches, a soft throw over the leather chair, family photos on the shelves, and fresh flowers on the desk. "You're bringing life to these old rooms," Lorenzo observed from the doorway, watching as she worked. "Is that okay?" she asked, suddenly uncertain. "More than okay," he assured her. "This house hasn't felt like a home since my mother passed. It's good to see it changing." That evening, rain drummed against the windows, creating a cozy atmosphere inside. Anna sat in the library, running her hands over her growing belly, when Lorenzo entered, carrying an old, well-worn Bible. "This was my mother's," he said, settling into the chair across from her. "When I was young, she would read to me during storms like this." Anna watched as he carefully opened the Bible, its pages marked with notes and underlines. Would you read some?" she asked hesitantly. Lorenzo nodded, his voice soft but clear as he began reading from Psalms. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures." As his voice filled the room, Anna felt the baby move, as if responding to the peaceful moment. She placed her hand over the spot where she'd felt the kick, a smile touching her lips. Lorenzo paused in his reading. "Is everything all right?" "The baby's moving," she explained. "It happens more in the evening, especially when it's quiet like this." He looked at her with genuine wonder. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward her belly. Anna nodded, and Lorenzo carefully placed his hand where hers had been. They waited in silence until another kick came, stronger this time. Lorenzo's face lit up with joy, making him look younger, more vulnerable. "My mother always said that faith was what carried her through the hardest times," he shared, his hand still resting gently on Anna's belly. "When my father died, she would sit in this very room and read this Bible for hours. She told me that even in our loneliest moments, we're never truly alone." Anna listened, touched by his willingness to share something so personal. "Were you lonely, even with all this?" She gestured to the grand room around them. "Especially with all this," he admitted. "Wealth can be its own kind of prison. People see what they want to see, the money, the status. They don't look deeper. That's why I waited. Why I never—" He trailed off, but Anna understood. The rain continued its steady rhythm outside as they sat together in comfortable silence. Anna felt the baby move again, gentler this time, like a flutter of agreement. For the first time in years, she felt truly safe. Not just physically protected, but emotionally secure. Lorenzo continued reading from the Bible, his voice mixing with the sound of rain and wind. Anna closed her eyes, letting the peace of the moment wash over her. Here, in this room, with this gentle man who had chosen to protect her, she finally felt like she could breathe freely. The evening passed quietly as they shared more stories. Lorenzo about his mother's strength and faith, Anna about her dreams for the baby. When the grandfather clock in the hall struck 10, Lorenzo closed the Bible carefully. "Thank you," Anna said softly, "for sharing this with me." "Thank you for listening," he replied, his eyes warm with understanding, "and for bringing life back into these rooms." As Anna prepared for bed that night, she could still hear the rain outside her window. The baby moved again, and she smiled, remembering Lorenzo's expression of wonder when he felt the kick. Perhaps this was what hope felt like. Not a dramatic explosion of joy, but a quiet, steady warmth that grew stronger day by day. Anna woke with a start, her hand flying to her stomach. The early morning light filtered through her bedroom curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. Something felt different. The familiar aches she'd grown used to over the past months had transformed into something more intense, more urgent. She glanced at the clock on her bedside table. 5:30 in the morning. Taking a deep breath, she tried to stay calm as another wave of discomfort washed over her. This wasn't like the practice contractions she'd experienced before. This felt real. "Lorenzo," she called out, her voice shakier than she intended. She heard quick footsteps in the hallway, and within moments he appeared in her doorway, already dressed for the day in a crisp blue shirt. "What's wrong?" he asked, immediately noticing her distressed expression. I think it's time," Anna managed, gripping the sheets as another contraction hit. "But it's too early. We still had 2 weeks." Lorenzo crossed the room in 3 long strides, his usual composed demeanor slightly cracked as his hands trembled while helping her sit up. "Babies come when they're ready," he said, his voice steady despite his shaking hands. "Let's get you to the hospital." He helped her into a comfortable dress, his movements gentle but efficient. Anna could see him working to maintain his calm exterior, but noticed how his fingers fumbled with her overnight bag's zipper. This man, usually so collected, was just as nervous as she was. The drive to the hospital was a blur of early morning mist and increasing contractions. Lorenzo kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other held firmly in Anna's grip. Each time a contraction hit, he would glance at her with concern, his knuckles whitening on the wheel. "Tell me about the nursery again," Anna requested through gritted teeth, needing a distraction from the pain. Lorenzo latched onto the topic gratefully. "The walls are painted the softest shade of yellow, like morning sunshine. The crib your grandmother used is restored and waiting, with the mobile of little angels hanging above it. The rocking chair sits by the window, looking out over the garden where she'll play someday." His voice, usually so measured, carried a slight tremor of excitement and fear. Anna focused on his words, letting them carry her through each wave of pain. At the hospital, everything moved quickly. The nurses efficiently wheeled Anna to the delivery ward while Lorenzo filled out paperwork, his normally precise handwriting showing signs of stress. He rejoined her quickly, pulling a chair close to her bed and taking her hand. "I'm scared," Anna whispered during a brief respite between contractions. "I know," Lorenzo replied, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "But you're stronger than you know, and I'm right here." Hours passed in a haze of pain and determination. Lorenzo never left her side, even when she squeezed his hand so hard it had to hurt. He wiped her forehead with cool cloths, fed her ice chips, and murmured encouragement through each contraction. The medical team moved with practiced efficiency around them, checking monitors and offering guidance. Through it all, Lorenzo remained Anna's anchor, his presence steady even though she could feel the slight tremor in his hands. "You're doing beautifully," he told her as the final stage approached. "Just like you've done everything else, with grace and courage." Anna wanted to laugh at the idea of grace. She felt anything but graceful. But another contraction took her breath away. The doctor's voice cut through her fog of pain. "It's time to push, Anna." The next few minutes were intense and overwhelming. Anna felt like she was being torn apart and put back together. Lorenzo's voice stayed with her, steady and encouraging, even as his hands shook while supporting her. And then, suddenly, a new sound filled the room, the strong, angry cry of a baby taking her first breath. Anna fell back against the pillows, exhausted but straining to see her daughter. The nurses quickly cleaned and wrapped the tiny bundle, then placed her in Anna's trembling arms. Anna stared down at the perfect little face, tears streaming down her cheeks. The baby had a dusting of dark hair and tiny features that somehow looked both strange and familiar. "She's beautiful," Lorenzo whispered, leaning close. His voice carried a note of awe she'd never heard before. "She's perfect." Anna couldn't stop crying as she counted tiny fingers and toes, overwhelmed by love and terror in equal measure. This small person depended entirely on her. The thought was both wonderful and terrifying. Lorenzo reached out to touch the baby's hand with one finger, and their daughter immediately grabbed hold, her tiny fingers wrapping around his larger one. The look on his face was one of pure wonder. "She's ours now," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "God gave her to both of us." He leaned closer, placing a gentle kiss on the baby's forehead, then on Anna's temple. "Thank you," he whispered, "for making me a father." The words brought fresh tears to Anna's eyes. This man, who had married her out of kindness, was now looking at her daughter, their daughter, with such pure love it made her heart ache. The nurses helped Anna get comfortable as exhaustion began to set in. She couldn't bear to let go of the baby, so they helped her arrange the pillows so she could hold her daughter safely while she rested. As evening fell, the room grew quiet. The baby slept peacefully in Anna's arms, making tiny snuffling sounds that made Anna's heart swell with love. Her eyes grew heavy, the events of the day catching up with her. Lorenzo sat in the chair beside her bed, his tie loosened and sleeves rolled up, the most disheveled she'd ever seen him. But his eyes never left his new family, watching over them with fierce protectiveness. As Anna drifted off to sleep, she was vaguely aware of Lorenzo's voice, soft and low, speaking to their sleeping daughter. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear, a promise, a vow to protect and love them both forever. The hospital room was filled with the gentle sounds of night-time, the quiet beep of monitors, the soft breathing of mother and child, and the whispered prayers of a new father, keeping watch over his precious family. The peaceful moments in the hospital seemed like a distant dream. Anna sat in Lorenzo's study, her hands trembling as she read the court documents that had been delivered that morning. Their daughter, just 5 days old, slept peacefully in a bassinet beside her, unaware of the storm brewing around them. The lawsuit filed by her relatives was thick with accusations. Words jumped off the page: mentally unstable, morally unfit, gold digger, manipulation. Each phrase felt like a physical blow. They weren't just trying to take away her inheritance, they wanted to declare her an unfit mother. Lorenzo stood by the window, his jaw tight as he spoke on the phone with their lawyer. Even from across the room, Anna could see the tension in his shoulders, though his voice remained steady and controlled. "Yes, we'll fight this. Every single claim." He turned to look at Anna, his eyes softening with concern. "Set up whatever meetings we need. Today, if possible." The baby stirred, making tiny whimpering sounds. Anna lifted her daughter carefully, cradling her close. The simple act of holding her child usually brought comfort, but now anxiety gnawed at her heart. What if they took her baby away? Lorenzo ended his call and crossed the room to sit beside them. "The lawyers are already working on our response," he said, placing a gentle hand on Anna's shoulder. "These accusations are baseless. We'll prove that." Anna's voice shook as she spoke. "But what if—" "No," Lorenzo interrupted firmly. "Don't let their lies take root in your mind. You are a wonderful mother. Anyone who spends 5 minutes watching you with our daughter can see that." Before Anna could respond, the housekeeper appeared at the door, her face grave. "Mr. Vaughn, Mrs. Vaughn, you might want to see this." She handed them the morning newspaper. Anna's heart sank as she saw the headline: "Billionaire's shotgun wedding. Vaughn heir deceived by pregnant gold digger." The article was cruel, filled with anonymous quotes from family sources painting Anna as a calculating manipulator who had trapped Lorenzo into marriage. They portrayed him as a naive fool too sheltered by his wealth to recognize an obvious scheme. "They're calling me a fool," Lorenzo said quietly, reading the paper. His tone wasn't angry. If anything, he sounded almost amused. "They clearly don't know me very well." But Anna couldn't find any humor in the situation. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she read further. The article dredged up every painful detail of her past, twisting it into something ugly and calculated. They even questioned her baby's parentage, suggesting she had deliberately gotten pregnant to trap a wealthy man. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never meant to bring this kind of scandal to your life." Lorenzo took the paper from her hands and deliberately set it aside. "Anna, look at me." He waited until she met his eyes. "I knew exactly what I was doing when I married you. The only fools here are the people who can't see what I see. A strong, beautiful woman who deserves to be loved and protected." The baby began to fuss, and Anna automatically adjusted her position, soothing her daughter with practiced movements. Lorenzo watched them with tender eyes. "That right there," he said softly. "That's all the proof anyone needs. You're a natural mother. Your instincts are perfect." But the peace of the moment was shattered by the sound of car doors slamming outside. Anna went to the window and felt her blood run cold. News vans were pulling up to the estate gates, reporters already clustering with cameras and microphones. "They're here," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Lorenzo moved quickly, calling security to reinforce the gates. The baby, sensing the tension, began to cry in earnest. Anna tried to calm her, but her own hands were shaking too badly. "Here," Lorenzo said gently, taking their daughter. He held her with surprising confidence, speaking softly until her cries subsided to hiccups. "Let's move to the back of the house, away from their cameras." They relocated to the nursery, a peaceful room Lorenzo had decorated himself in soft yellows and greens. But even here, they could hear the distant shouts of reporters calling questions through the gates. Anna sank into the rocking chair, feeling overwhelmed. "What if this never stops? What if they never leave us alone?" Lorenzo knelt beside her chair, still holding their sleeping daughter. "Then we'll weather it together. I've dealt with press attention my whole life. I know how to handle them." "But this is different," Anna protested. "They're not just after gossip anymore. My family is trying to take our baby away." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "They're trying to prove I'm unfit." "Listen to me," Lorenzo said firmly. "Your family has money and influence, yes, but so do I. And unlike them, I'll use every resource I have to protect what matters." He looked down at their daughter. "You and this little one, you're my family now. Nothing else matters." The rest of the day passed in a blur of phone calls and legal discussions. Their lawyer arrived, bringing a team of experts to build their defense. Anna tried to focus on their strategies and plans, but her mind kept drifting to the newspaper article, to the cruel words and accusations. As evening fell, the reporters finally began to leave, though a few persistent ones remained camped at the gates. Anna stood at the nursery window, rocking her daughter and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Lorenzo found them there, wrapping his arms around both of them from behind. "Penny, for your thoughts?" "I'm scared," Anna admitted quietly. "Not just of losing the inheritance. I never cared about that anyway. But what if they convince everyone I'm unfit? What if they take her away?" "That won't happen," Lorenzo promised. "I won't let it happen." But Anna could hear the strain in his voice, the worry he was trying to hide. This wasn't what he had signed up for when he offered to marry her. He had wanted to protect her from cruel whispers at a family reunion. Now he was facing public scandal and legal battles. "Maybe," she started, her voice breaking. "Maybe it would be easier if—" "Don't," Lorenzo interrupted, turning her to face him. "Don't even think about leaving. We're stronger together, Anna. Remember what I said in the chapel? God brought us together for a reason." Their daughter stirred in Anna's arms, making small snuffling sounds. Anna looked down at her perfect face, feeling the familiar mix of love and terror. Everything felt so fragile. Their marriage, their happiness, their little family. One wrong move, one lost battle, and it could all crumble. Later that night, after Lorenzo had gone to his study to make more calls, Anna sat in the nursery rocking chair. Their daughter was awake, staring up at her with unfocused eyes. Anna traced her tiny features with a gentle finger, memorizing every detail. "I'll fight for you," she whispered to her baby. "I promise. No matter what they say about me, no matter how hard they try to break us apart, I'll fight." But in the quiet darkness, doubt crept in like a shadow. The newspaper lay discarded on a side table, its harsh headlines visible even in the dim light. Anna thought of all the people who would read those words, who would believe the worst about her. She thought of the long legal battle ahead, of more reporters and cameras, of her family's relentless determination to destroy her happiness. As she rocked her daughter to sleep, Anna wondered if their fragile happiness was already doomed. The weight of public ridicule pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. Even Lorenzo's strength and protection seemed somehow distant in the face of such overwhelming opposition. The baby finally drifted off to sleep, her tiny hand curled around Anna's finger. Anna continued, rocking, tears sliding silently down her cheeks, caught between love for her child and fear for their future. The stress of the past few days had taken its toll on Anna. Her face grew paler with each passing hour, dark circles deepening under her eyes. Lorenzo noticed how she would pause mid-step, steadying herself against walls or furniture. But whenever he expressed concern, she brushed it off with a weak smile. "I'm just tired," she kept saying. "It's normal with a newborn." But that evening, as Anna stood from the rocking chair after feeding their daughter, something changed. Her face went chalk white, and her eyes rolled back. Lorenzo had just entered the nursery when he saw her begin to crumple. "Anna!" He lunged forward, catching her before she hit the floor. Their daughter, startled by the sudden movement, began to cry from her crib. Anna lay limp in his arms, her skin clammy and cold. Lorenzo's heart hammered against his ribs as he checked her pulse. It was there, but weak and irregular. With trembling hands, he pulled out his phone and called for an ambulance. "Stay with me," he whispered, cradling her head in his lap. "Please, Anna, stay with me." The next few minutes passed in a blur. Their housekeeper rushed in, alerted by the baby's cries. Lorenzo gave quick instructions about caring for their daughter, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. When the paramedics arrived, they worked swiftly, asking questions he struggled to answer. "She just had a baby," he told them, following as they transferred Anna to a stretcher. 8 days ago. She's been under so much stress." The ambulance ride felt endless. Lorenzo held Anna's hand, watching her chest rise and fall with shallow breaths. The paramedics attached monitors, started an IV, spoke in clipped medical terms that blurred together in his mind. All he could focus on was Anna's face, so still and pale against the white sheets. At the hospital, they whisked her away through double doors marked, "Authorized personnel only." A kind-faced nurse guided Lorenzo to a waiting area, promising to update him as soon as possible. But minutes stretched into hours with no news. The sterile halls seemed to close in around him as he paced. Back and forth, 15 steps one way, 15 steps back. His expensive shoes clicked against the linoleum floor, marking time like a metronome. Other people in the waiting room cast sympathetic glances his way, but he barely noticed them. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He needed something. Peace, guidance, hope. His feet carried him to the hospital chapel, a small room tucked away on the first floor. The space was empty, lit only by artificial candles that cast soft shadows on the walls. Lorenzo stood in the doorway for a long moment, then slowly walked to the front pew. His legs gave out, and he sank to his knees, pressing his forehead against clasped hands. "Please," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Please, God, don't take her from me." Tears he had been holding back finally spilled over. "I know I don't deserve her. I know this started as just trying to help someone in need. But she's become everything to me. She and that baby, they're my family now. My real family." His shoulders shook as he continued praying, no longer caring about maintaining his usual composed demeanor. "I'm scared," he admitted. "I'm so scared. I promised to protect her, but I can't protect her from this. I can't lose her. Please, Lord, give me strength. Give her strength. Don't let this be how our story ends." Time lost meaning in the quiet chapel. Lorenzo poured out his heart in prayer until exhaustion overtook him. He slumped into the pew, his head resting against the hard wooden back. Despite his determination to stay awake, his eyes drifted closed. He dreamed of Anna. Anna laughing as she organized his messy bookshelves, Anna humming softly to their daughter, Anna looking up at him with trust in her eyes. In his dreams, she was healthy and strong, glowing with happiness instead of pale with illness. A gentle hand on his shoulder pulled him from sleep. Lorenzo blinked, disoriented, as early morning light filtered through the chapel's stained glass windows. A nurse stood beside him, her face kind. "Mr. Vaughn, I've been looking for you. Your wife is stable now." Lorenzo sat up straight, his heart leaping. "She's okay?" "She made it through the night," the nurse confirmed. "The doctors managed to get her blood pressure under control. She's weak, but she's asking for you." Lorenzo practically ran through the halls, following the nurse's directions. Outside Anna's room, he paused to compose himself, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Then he pushed open the door. Anna lay propped up slightly on white pillows, various monitors beeping softly beside her bed. An IV line snaked from her arm, and her face was still pale, but her eyes were open. When she saw him, her lips curved into a faint smile. "I knew you'd never leave me," she whispered. Lorenzo crossed the room in 3 long strides, carefully gathering her hand in both of his. "Never," he promised, his voice rough with emotion. "I'll always be here, Anna, always." She squeezed his hand weakly. "I'm sorry for scaring you." "Don't apologize." He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "Just focus on getting better. Our daughter needs her mother. And His voice caught. "I need my wife." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "You were in the chapel all night, weren't you? I could feel it. Feel you praying for me." Lorenzo nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He had never believed in love at first sight, had never expected to fall in love at all. But somehow, this woman who had started as a stranger in need of protection had become the center of his world. "The baby?" Anna asked suddenly, trying to sit up straighter. "Is perfectly fine," Lorenzo assured her, gently pressing her back against the pillows. "Mrs. Chen is taking excellent care of her. Now you need to take care of yourself." Anna relaxed slightly, though worry still creased her forehead. "The lawsuit can wait," Lorenzo said firmly. "Nothing matters right now except getting you well." The fluorescent lights of the hospital room cast a harsh glow over Anna's pale face as she slowly began her recovery. Lorenzo pulled a chair close to her bed. its legs scraping softly against the linoleum floor. He hadn't left the hospital since her collapse, except to quickly shower and change clothes when Mrs. Chen, their kind-hearted housekeeper, brought him fresh garments. "You should go home and rest properly," Anna whispered one evening, her voice still weak. "The baby needs you too." Lorenzo shook his head, reaching for her hand. "Mrs. Chen is taking excellent care of our daughter. My place is here with you." Every 3 hours, like clockwork, Mrs. Chen would bring their baby girl to the hospital for feeding. Lorenzo would cradle the infant carefully while Anna nursed, supporting both mother and child. These quiet moments became sacred to them, a reminder of what they were fighting for. The doctors moved cautiously with Anna's recovery, monitoring her vital signs constantly. Lorenzo took detailed notes during every consultation, asking thoughtful questions and ensuring all instructions were followed to the letter. At night, when Anna slept, Lorenzo would pace the room softly, holding their daughter. "Your mama's getting stronger," he would whisper to the baby. "She's the bravest person I know." Sometimes he would catch Anna watching them through half-closed eyes, a tender smile playing on her lips. After 2 weeks, the doctors finally agreed Anna could return home. Lorenzo supervised every detail of her discharge, making sure she was comfortable in the wheelchair that hospital policy required. The drive home was slow and careful, with Lorenzo checking his rearview mirror constantly to ensure Anna was comfortable in the back seat. Their arrival home marked the beginning of a new routine. Lorenzo had transformed the main floor guest room into a temporary bedroom for Anna, eliminating the need for her to climb stairs. Fresh flowers filled crystal vases on every surface, their sweet fragrance replacing the sterile hospital smell she'd lived with for weeks. "The roses are beautiful," Anna said softly, touching a velvet-soft petal. "They're from the garden you helped plant," Lorenzo replied. "It seemed right to bring them inside for you." He'd thought of everything. Warm, soft blankets in soothing colors were folded neatly at the foot of her bed. A small speaker played gentle classical music at low volume. By her bedside table, he'd placed a silver bell she could ring if she needed anything during the night. The physical therapist, a gentle woman named Sarah, came 3 times a week. Lorenzo sat in on every session, learning the exercises so he could help Anna practice between visits. They started small, simple movements to rebuild her strength gradually. "You're doing wonderfully," Sarah would say, and Lorenzo would beam with pride at Anna's progress. At night, when the house grew quiet, Lorenzo would bring their daughter to Anna's room. He'd learned to change diapers with surprising skill, his large hands becoming remarkably gentle with practice. Sometimes he would sit in the rocking chair, holding the baby while Anna rested, and read aloud from his mother's Bible. One particularly peaceful evening, as moonlight streamed through the windows, Anna watched Lorenzo walking their daughter to sleep. The baby's tiny hand was curled around his finger, and he was humming softly, slightly off-key, but with such tenderness it brought tears to Anna's eyes. "I never thought I'd have this," she said quietly. Lorenzo looked up, still swaying gently with the baby. "Have what?" "This feeling of safety, of being cherished." Anna's voice wavered. "Even with everything happening, the lawsuit, my family's cruelty, I'm not afraid anymore." Lorenzo carefully placed their sleeping daughter in the bassinet and moved to sit on the edge of Anna's bed. "Tell me why," he said softly. Anna reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "Because you've shown me what real love looks like. Not the conditional kind my family offered, but something pure and strong." She glanced at their sleeping daughter. "And because of her. She's our miracle, Lorenzo. Our reminder that God has a plan bigger than we can see." Lorenzo squeezed her hand gently. "We'll face whatever comes together. The lawyers are already preparing our defense against your family's lawsuit. We have truth on our side, Anna, And more importantly, we have love. The baby made a small cooing sound in her sleep, as if agreeing with her father's words. Anna smiled, feeling strength flow back into her body with each passing day. The house Lorenzo had once described as cold and empty now felt warm with life and hope. During her afternoon therapy sessions, Anna began taking longer walks through the house, supported by Lorenzo's steady arm. They would stop at the home office, where thick folders of legal documents waited for their attention. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, Anna faced them with newfound determination. "We should go through these files together," she said one afternoon, settling into a comfortable chair Lorenzo had placed in the office specifically for her. "I want to understand everything about the case." Lorenzo nodded approvingly. "Our lawyers say we have a strong position. Your family's claims about your fitness as a mother are baseless. We have documentation from your doctors, character references from the townspeople who know us, even statements from some of the hospital staff who witnessed our time there." As they worked through the paperwork, their daughter would often lie in her bassinet nearby, making happy gurgling sounds that lifted their spirits. Sometimes, when the legals' terminology became too dense or the accusations too painful to read, they would take breaks to simply watch her, their tiny miracle, proving with every smile and coo that love could triumph over hatred. "She's getting stronger every day," Lorenzo observed one evening as they watched her kick her legs energetically during tummy time. "Just like her mother." Anna smiled, reaching out to stroke their daughter's downy head. "We're all getting stronger together. Sometimes I think that's what this whole journey has been about, learning that real strength comes from love, not power or money or social standing." The baby rolled over for the first time that evening, earning delighted gasps from both parents. Lorenzo quickly captured the moment on his phone, his eyes shining with pride. It was a small milestone, but it felt significant. Their little family moving forward, growing, thriving despite all odds. As twilight settled over the house, Lorenzo lit the fireplace in Anna's room and brought her a cup of chamomile tea. The baby was already asleep in her bassinet, one tiny fist curled beside her cheek. Anna watched the flames dance, feeling peaceful despite knowing the challenges that still lay ahead. "Thank you," she said suddenly, looking up at Lorenzo. "For what?" "For everything. For defending me that first day at the reunion, for marrying me when you didn't have to, for staying by my side in the hospital, for making this house a home." She paused, touching her heart. "For making me feel worthy of love." Lorenzo sat beside her, his eyes serious. "You were always worthy of love, Anna. I just had the privilege of being the one to show you that truth." He glanced at their sleeping daughter. "And now we have living proof of God's love right here with us." The baby sighed softly in her sleep, as if sensing she was being discussed. Anna reached for Lorenzo's hand, drawing strength from his steady presence. Together they would face whatever came next. The lawsuit, her family's attempts to hurt them, any challenge life presented. They had found something precious, a love built on faith, trust, and genuine care for each other. As night settled over their home, the gentle music Lorenzo had chosen played softly in the background, and the scent of fresh flowers filled the air. Anna felt peace settle over her heart. They were ready for the battles ahead, but more importantly, they were ready for the joy of building their future together. The courthouse loomed before them, its stone steps already crowded with spectators and news reporters. Anna clutched Lorenzo's hand tightly, their baby girl nestled securely in her carrier. The morning sun cast long shadows across the courthouse lawn, where clusters of people whispered and pointed as they approached. "Remember what we practiced," Lorenzo murmured, his calm voice steadying her nerves. "Just speak your truth. That's all that matters today." Inside the courtroom, the polished wooden benches filled quickly. Anna's relatives swept in like a flock of predatory birds, dressed in expensive suits and designer dresses. Their lawyers carried sleek briefcases and wore expressions of practiced concern. Anna's uncle caught her eye and smirked, making her stomach churn. Lorenzo guided Anna to their table, where their attorney, Mrs. Thompson, waited with organized stacks of documents. The baby remained remarkably quiet, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. Anna adjusted the soft pink blanket around her daughter, drawing strength from her peaceful face. "All rise," the bailiff called out as Judge Martinez entered the courtroom. The rustle of movement filled the air as everyone stood. Anna's legs felt weak, but Lorenzo's presence beside her kept her upright. The opposition's opening statement was brutal. Their lead attorney painted a picture of Anna as an unstable young woman who had manipulated a wealthy, naive man into marriage. They suggested she was using her baby as a tool for financial gain, questioning her ability to provide proper care and guidance. "We will prove," the attorney declared, "that Ms. Anna's history of poor decisions and emotional instability make her an unfit mother. Furthermore, we will demonstrate that Mr. Vaughan's judgment was compromised by misplaced sympathy, rendering him incapable of providing objective support for this child's well-being." Anna's hands trembled beneath the table. Lorenzo reached over, covering them with his own steady grip. When Mrs. Thompson rose for their opening statement, her voice rang clear and confident through the courtroom. "Your Honor, we are here today because of love, pure, simple, and divinely inspired. We will show that Mr. and Mrs. Vaughan have created a stable, nurturing home for their daughter. We will present evidence of the systematic emotional abuse Mrs. Vaughan endured from her own family, and demonstrate how Mr. Vaughan's choice to marry her was not born of manipulation, but of genuine compassion and commitment." The prosecution called their witnesses first. Anna's cousins took the stand one by one, recounting manufactured stories of her supposed instability. They spoke of imagined tantrums, fabricated incidents of irresponsibility, and cruel interpretations of her quiet nature as proof of mental unfitness. When her uncle testified, he wielded years of subtle torment like a weapon. "She's always been troubled," he said, his voice dripping with false concern. "Difficult to control, prone to attention-seeking behavior. This marriage is just another example of her manipulation." Lorenzo's jaw tightened, but he remained composed. Their time would come. Mrs. Thompson began their defense by calling Dr. Sarah Chen, Anna's obstetrician. The doctor's testimony was clear and professional, describing Anna's dedication to her prenatal care and the strong bond she had already formed with her daughter. "Mrs. Vaughan has demonstrated exceptional attention to her child's needs," Dr. Chen stated firmly. "She attended every appointment, followed all medical advice, and has shown remarkable resilience during her recovery from a difficult delivery. The baby is thriving under her care." Next came Pastor Michael from their church, who spoke of witnessing their marriage and the genuine growth of their relationship. "I've counseled many couples," he said, "and I've rarely seen such sincere commitment to building a family foundation on faith and mutual respect." Several townspeople testified about Lorenzo's reputation for integrity and Anna's gentle interaction with children at church events. Mrs. Wilson, who owned the local diner, described the night Lorenzo brought Anna there for dinner, speaking of the obvious care and protection he showed her. Then it was Lorenzo's turn. He walked to the witness stand with quiet dignity, taking the oath with clear conviction in his voice. Mrs. Thompson led him through their story, from the family reunion to their current life together. "Mr. Vaughan, why did you choose to marry Mrs. Anna?" Lorenzo's gaze found Anna's across the courtroom. "Because I saw someone precious being treated as worthless. I saw strength where others chose to see weakness. My decision wasn't impulsive or naive. It was based on recognizing true character beneath cruel judgment. The opposition's cross-examination tried to shake him, suggesting financial manipulation and questioning his judgment. Lorenzo remained unruffled, his answers measured and sincere. "Yes, I am wealthy," he acknowledged. "But I've spent my life protecting that wealth from those who would exploit it. Anna has never asked me for money. She's only asked for safety, respect, and the chance to be a mother to her child. I've given those freely, and I'll continue to do so." Finally, it was Anna's turn to testify. Her legs felt like water as she approached the witness stand, but when she looked at her daughter, sleeping peacefully in Lorenzo's arms, steel entered her spine. Mrs. Thompson guided her gently through her history, the years of emotional abuse, the abandonment by her baby's biological father, the constant belittling of her worth. Anna's voice grew stronger as she spoke, years of pain and determination flowing through her words. "My daughter will never know what it feels like to be unwanted," she declared, her voice clear and steady. "She will grow up knowing she is loved, protected, and valued. Lorenzo didn't rescue me. He gave me the safety to rescue myself, to become the mother I choose to be, not the failure my family always claimed I was." The opposition's cross-examination was aggressive, trying to provoke an emotional response that would support their claims of instability. Anna remained composed, answering each question with quiet dignity. When they tried to suggest she had trapped Lorenzo, she looked directly at her uncle. "The only trap here," she said firmly, "is the one my family built around me my whole life, the trap of believing I was worthless. Lorenzo helped me break free from that trap. Now I'm strong enough to make sure my daughter never experiences that kind of prison." After closing arguments, the courtroom fell silent as Judge Martinez reviewed the evidence. Anna held her breath, feeling Lorenzo's steady presence beside her. Their daughter stirred in her carrier, making soft, cooing sounds that echoed in the tense quiet. The judge looked up, her expression serious. "Having reviewed all evidence and testimony presented, I find no merit in the plaintiff's claims. Mrs. Vaughn has demonstrated clear capability as a mother, supported by medical professionals and community witnesses. Mr. Vaughn has shown sound judgment and sincere commitment to his family's well-being. This case is hereby dismissed." The bang of the gavel seemed to release all the tension from Anna's body. She sagged against Lorenzo, tears of relief streaming down her face. He wrapped his arms around her and their daughter, creating a protective circle of love and triumph. Their victory was more than legal. It was the final breaking of chains that had bound Anna's spirit for so long. As they left the courthouse together, stepping into the bright afternoon sunlight, she held her head high. They were a family, strong and united, ready to build their future on a foundation of love, faith, and unshakable truth. Outside the courthouse, a wave of cheers erupted from the gathered crowd. Dozens of townspeople who had watched their story unfold stood on the steps, clapping and calling out words of encouragement. Mrs. Wilson from the diner was there, tears streaming down her face as she waved. The pastor who had married them stood quietly to one side, nodding with quiet approval. Camera flashes burst around them like lightning, making Anna blink and instinctively draw closer to their baby girl. Lorenzo's arm came around her shoulders protectively, his tall frame creating a shield between her and the press. His steps were measured and calm as he guided them through the crowd. "Mrs. Vaughn, how does it feel to win?" a reporter called out. "Mr. Vaughn, any comment on the judge's decision?" The questions flew at them from all directions, but Lorenzo kept moving, his hand steady at Anna's back. Their daughter stayed peaceful in her carrier, somehow sleeping through all the commotion. When they reached their car, Lorenzo opened the door and helped Anna settle in with the baby before walking around to the driver's side. Through the tinted windows, Anna could see reporters scribbling in notepads. But their faces looked different now, not hungry for scandal, but thoughtful. One young journalist was already typing on her phone, and Anna caught a glimpse of the headline being composed, "Love Triumphs, the real story behind the Vaughan marriage." The drive home was quiet, filled with a peace that felt new and precious. Lorenzo reached across to hold her hand at stop lights, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her skin. Their daughter woke, briefly, making happy, gurgling sounds before drifting back to sleep. When they arrived at the estate, the sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. Lorenzo helped Anna from the car, then carefully lifted their sleeping daughter from her carrier. "Why don't we sit outside for a while?" he suggested softly. "It's a beautiful evening." The porch swing had become their favorite spot over the past months. Lorenzo had installed it himself shortly after bringing Anna home as his wife, saying every family home needed a proper swing. Now, as they settled into its familiar embrace, Anna felt the last bits of tension from the courtroom melt away. Their daughter lay peacefully in her bassinet beside the swing, one tiny hand curled around her blanket. The gentle back and forth motion seemed to soothe all three of them as they watched the sun sink lower on the horizon. The vineyard stretched out before them, its neat rows of vines glowing in the evening light. Anna leaned against Lorenzo's shoulder, breathing in the scent of his cologne mixed with the sweet evening air. After everything, the cruel whispers, the public scrutiny, the legal battle, they were here, together, stronger than before. The realization brought tears to her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness or fear. "We're free now," she whispered, her voice full of wonder. Lorenzo's arm tightened around her, and she felt him press a gentle kiss to the top of her head. His voice was deep and tender when he replied, "No, my love, we are just beginning." The words settled over them like a blessing as the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in brilliant colors. Their daughter made a soft sound in her sleep, as if agreeing with her father's promise. In that moment, on their porch swing, watching the day end and a new chapter of their lives begin, Anna felt complete peace. The future stretched before them, not as something to fear, but as a gift to be cherished. The autumn morning brought an unexpected visitor to the Vaughan estate. Through the kitchen window, Anna spotted a familiar figure walking up the gravel path. Her father, looking smaller somehow, his shoulders hunched beneath his worn jacket. Her hands trembled as she set down the dish she'd been washing. Lorenzo, who had been feeding their daughter in her high chair, noticed Anna's sudden stillness. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Before Anna could answer, the doorbell chimed. She walked to the front door, her heart pounding with each step. When she opened it, the sight of her father up close made her breath catch. His face was deeply lined, his hair grayer than she remembered, and his eyes carried a weariness she'd never seen before. "Anna," he said, his voice rough with emotion. I hope it's okay that I came." She nodded wordlessly, stepping aside to let him in. The foyer's silence felt heavy with unspoken words. "I was wrong," her father blurted out, his hands fidgeting with his hat. "I was so wrong to let them treat you that way, to treat you that way myself. I've been lying awake at night, thinking about everything." From the kitchen came the happy babble of the baby, and her father's eyes turned towards the sound. "Is that your granddaughter?" Anna finished quietly. Lorenzo appeared in the doorway, carrying their daughter. The baby wore a pale yellow dress, her dark curls framing her cherubic face. Anna's father took an uncertain step forward, his eyes filling with tears. "Would you like to hold her?" Lorenzo asked gently. The old man nodded, carefully accepting the precious bundle. His hands shook as he cradled her, tears now flowing freely down his weathered cheeks. The baby reached up, touching his face with curious fingers, and a sob escaped him. "I'm so sorry, Anna," he whispered, looking at his daughter over the baby's head. "I should have protected you, should have stood up to all of them. Instead, I let shame and pride blind me to what really mattered." Anna felt Lorenzo's steady presence beside her as she looked at her father. This proud man now humbled by regret. The hurt was still there, a dull ache in her chest, but something else stirred alongside it. Compassion. "I forgive you, Dad," she said softly. The words came from a place of strength, not weakness. She knew the scars would remain, but forgiveness could begin the healing. Lorenzo stepped forward, extending his hand to his father-in-law. The older man shifted the baby to one arm and reached out. What started as a handshake transformed into an embrace, the baby cooing happily between them. Later that night, after her father had left with promises to visit again soon, Anna and Lorenzo stood over their daughter's crib. The nursery was bathed in soft lamplight as they watched their little girl drift off to sleep. Lorenzo's arm wrapped around Anna's waist, pulling her close. "We've come so far," Anna murmured, watching their daughter's peaceful face. Lorenzo nodded, his presence solid and reassuring beside her. Their journey had been marked by pain and triumph, rejection and acceptance, darkness and light. But here they were, standing together, watching over the precious life that had brought them together and helped heal old wounds. The spring breeze carried the sweet scent of wildflowers across Lorenzo's estate as Anna spread a checkered blanket over the lush grass. Their daughter, dressed in a pale pink sundress, crawled eagerly on the soft fabric, her dark curls bouncing with each movement. Lorenzo carefully unpacked their picnic basket, arranging fresh bread, wedges of cheese, and bright red strawberries on simple ceramic plates. The meadow around them swayed gently, dotted with yellow dandelions and purple clover. It was a perfect afternoon, the kind that seemed painted by an artist's careful hand. "Look, sweetheart," Anna pointed as a monarch butterfly drifted past on orange and black wings. Their daughter's eyes widened with wonder, and she reached out with chubby fingers, trying to catch the delicate creature. Her infectious giggles filled the air as the butterfly danced just beyond her grasp. The sun warmed Anna's face as she watched her daughter's joy, her cheeks flushed pink with excitement and health. What a difference a year had made, from hiding in shadows to basking in light, from shame to celebration. The memory of cruel whispers had faded, replaced by the sound of her daughter's laughter and Lorenzo's gentle voice. Lorenzo settled beside them, his usual formal demeanor softened by the casual afternoon. He handed Anna a slice of crusty bread topped with cheese, their fingers brushing in a way that still made her heart skip. Their daughter crawled into his lap, reaching for a bright red strawberry. "Careful, little one," he murmured, breaking the fruit into smaller pieces for her. The sight of this powerful man tenderly feeding their baby made Anna's eyes well with tears of gratitude. The meadow grass rustled softly around their blanket island as Lorenzo turned to Anna, his eyes filled with warmth. "You know," he said quietly, taking her hand in his, "they called you ugly back then." His thumb traced gentle circles on her palm. "But you are God's masterpiece. Every day I see more of your beauty, in your strength, your forgiveness, your love for our daughter." Anna's breath caught at his words as he continued. "You've given me something money could never buy, a real family. That makes me the richest man alive." Tears of joy spilled down Anna's cheeks as she leaned into his strong shoulder. Their daughter chose that moment to let out a peal of delighted laughter, the pure sound carrying across the meadow and into the golden afternoon light. The butterfly returned, landing briefly on a nearby flower, its wings catching the sunlight like stained glass. In that perfect moment, surrounded by the simple beauty of bread and cheese, wild flowers and butterflies, and most importantly, the love of her small family, Anna felt the full weight of her transformation. From darkness to light, from rejection to acceptance, from loneliness to belonging, this was her new beginning, painted in sunshine and sealed with the laughter of her child. Thank you for being here. If something in this story stayed with you, I'd love to see you again. Subscribe, and tomorrow I'll bring you another story crafted with heart.